To order, 6:30.
We're going to call the meeting to order.
Roll call, Mike Boulier.
Mike, are you online? Mike Boulier?
Michael Sharon.
Mike Sharon, Hebron.
Joseph Coletti.
Joe Coletti, Hebron.
Kirsten Erlinson.
Is Kirsten online? No, okay.
Pam Farrington.
Pam Farrington, Marlboro.
Harry Ferlino.
No. Nope.
Drew Golphin.
Drew Golphin, Marlboro.
Abe Marks.
Gabe Marks from Hebron.
Amy Romanchuk.
Amy Romanchuk, Marlboro.
Scott Soyat.
Scott?
Yeah, he's there.
No audio, but he is there.
Heather Summer.
Heather Summer from Hebron.
Have everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so I am going to take Oliver. Thank you so much. I love the idea of having our student members start our meetings with roll call and the pledge. So thank you for leading that part of the meeting. We're actually jumping into our next agenda item, which is the student program spotlight. We wanted to have this be the onset of our meeting this evening because I think it's going to set a very positive tone for our December meeting. As the board knows, RHAM has an outstanding music program and has been recognized as a best community for music education for 8 consecutive years. Last Thursday, I had the pleasure of being in the audience for the high school winter concert, and I am excited to welcome Bailey McKiernan, our choral teacher, along with several of her chorus students who are actually going to perform for us tonight as a part of our student program spotlight. So I will introduce William. Come on up, guys.
Sopranos, basses, tenors, altos. Sopranos. Thank you very much for having us. We have 2 carols prepared for you this evening. On Wednesday, we will be spending our day caroling to every elementary school in the 3 towns, the Flower Grove Cafe and Colebrook Village. Joy, 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 joy to the world, the Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare in room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Joy to the world, the Savior reigns. Let men their songs employ, while fields and floods, rocks, hills, and plains repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy, repeat the sounding joy. Off with today will be Old Lang Syne. Joy, joy. Should old acquaintance be forgot and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot and days of old lang syne? For old lang syne, my dear, for old lang
so
Thank
much.
you. That was
That was
really
wonderful.
wonderful. Thank you very much, you guys.
That was great. Can we do that every meeting?
Wouldn't that be
Really?
nice?
They were really
Wouldn't
good.
that be nice? Well, I thought it was a positive one. Nice little holiday. I should have noted too, at the concert on Thursday, Drew was one of the raffle winners and won the RHAM music sweatshirt, which he is wearing to represent. That was an awesome little thing. So glad to see that you're representing. Fantastic. Great. All right. Well, I can't believe that I have to go after that and try to do something that's going to be even remotely as exciting. But we're going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the election of officers. In accordance with board bylaws, the board must annually elect members to officers' positions. Nominations can be made by any board member, and self-nominations are also allowable. Nominations must be accepted by another board member to be considered, and more than one nomination can be made. If there is only one nominee for a position, the vote will be for that one nominee. If there is more than one nominee for a position, board members will cast their voice vote for one of the nominees by naming their nominee of choice or abstaining from the vote, and the nominee with the majority of the votes is elected to the position. At this time, I'm going to open up the floor to nominations.
I'd like to nominate Heather Summer for board chair.
I'll second.
So nomination by Scott, seconded by Joe.
Reverse, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's fine. Same thing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Are there any other nominations for chair of the board? All right. If there are no further nominations, we are going to declare the nominations closed. Does there need to be any discussion? All right, not hearing any need for discussion. For each of these votes for officers, we do a roll call vote, so it's going to be a little bit of timely, but I'm going to go through and we're going to do a roll call vote. Carrie Ferlino, I don't know if she's here. Still not here. Joe Coletti.
Yes.
Gabe Marks.
Yes.
Pam Farrington.
Yes.
Amy Romanchuk.
Yes.
Scott Soyette.
Yes.
Mike Sharon.
Yes.
Kirsten Erlinson.
Yes.
Heather Summerer.
Yes.
Mike Bullier. Yeah. Not responding. All right, maybe we'll get him. Andrew Golphin.
Yes.
All right, we have a returning chair who I will happily, look at that, she gets the nameplate put over there,
Oh my
and I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Oh, okay. Oh, you were doing such a great
I
job.
know.
Okay, so we need to open the floor for nominations for the position of vice chair. I'd like to nominate Joe Coletti.
I'll second. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, and then are there any other nominations for vice chair? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Carrie Ferlino's not here?
Yeah, she's
Okay. Mike Sharon,
Yes.
Joe Coletti,
Yes.
Kirsten Erlinson,
Yes.
Gabe Marks,
Yes.
Heather Summers, yes. Pam Farrington,
Yes.
Mike Bullier, Amy Romanchuk,
Yes.
Drew Golphin,
Yes.
Scott Soyette.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'd like to open the floor to nominations for the position of secretary. I'd like to nominate Mike.
Second.
Second by Drew. Any other nominations? Okay, roll call vote. Carrie Ferlino's not here. Mike Sharon,
Yes.
Joe Coletti,
Yes.
Kirsten Erlinson,
Yes.
Gabe Marks,
Yes.
Pam Farrington,
Yes.
Mike Bullier.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, finally fixed it. Yes. I guess yes on all three, by the way. I was trying to.
Amy Romanchuk,
Yes.
Drew Golphin,
Yes.
Scott Soyat,
Yes.
and Heather Summers, yes. Okay. Open the nominations for the position of treasurer. I'd like to nominate Gabe Marks.
I'll second.
Scott. Any other nominations? Okay, roll call. Kara Berlino's not here. Mike Sharon,
Yes.
Joe Coletti,
Yes.
Kirsten Erlinson, Gabe Marks,
Yes.
Pam Farrington,
Yes.
Mike Bollier,
Yes.
Amy Romanchuk,
Yes.
Drew Golphin,
Yes.
Scott Soyat,
Yes.
and Heather Summer is yes.
We're good.
I think that's it.
We are good to go.
Okay. That brings us to public comments. Hebron Hanover and Marlboro community engagement and attendance at BOE public meetings is welcomed. The public comment segment of the meeting agenda is set aside so the BOE may receive public comments. Procedurally, public remarks will be limited to 3 minutes and citizens will be asked to identify themselves. Because the BOE is limited by the Freedom of Information Act to discussing only matters on the agenda, the BOE is not permitted to engage in a discussion of the comments presented. And I would like to remind everybody that there will only be one public comment portion, which is at the beginning of the meeting. So is there anybody that would like to make public comment?
Yes, please. I'm online.
Is that Meg?
Hi. I just turned my camera on.
Okay.
Hi. Margaret Clifton, 10 Cottage Lane in Amsden. Full disclosure, I also teach at the school. First of all, thank you. Happy December, everyone. I know this is a crazy time of year, so thank you for being here. Second, I just wanted to acknowledge the resignation letter by Eric Nunes in the list of files. Eric was absolutely amazing for the 9 years he was at RHAM. That's going to be a huge loss to our community. So I encouraging the school and the board to make sure that they find someone who can fill his shoes and kind of live up to all the amazing things that he did. We have so many great resources in our both middle school and high school library media centers. Eric was able to teach some of my students how to use the podcast studio, which they used for projects. He created a bunch of materials for how to dispel disinformation online and how to do research appropriately that I used with my UConn English students. So I just encourage the school to make sure that they find someone who will be able to kind of equally serve our community. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. We are going to miss him. Any other public comments? Okay. All right. So that will bring us to the student representatives report. I don't know who. Brianna, you going to go first tonight? Oh, I'm sorry. Forgot. Sorry, guys. I skipped over add and delete any agenda items. Does anybody have any agenda items that they want to add or delete? No. Okay, now you can go, Brianna.
Thank you. Some things I just wanted to talk about. The winter sports season coming up. There's a bunch of new tryouts. Basketball, I believe, wrestling, and other stuff. The Seal of Biliteracy test that took place earlier this month. Students were able to take a test to test their ability in the language that they're learning, and I think that was also very cool because it's not just the languages we're taught in school, not just Spanish, Latin, and French. There's also different language options. So if you are learning a different language outside of school, it shows your dedication, and if you were able to pass, that's really awesome. The Model UN field trip, I think that's actually tomorrow or on Wednesday, where the group is going to Uhart, I believe, or was that? Yeah, something like that. And then the NHS induction with the National Honor Society. Honors students were finally welcomed into that group. And the winter concert with the chorus that just sang with us, very moving. Getting the whole school into the Christmas spirit. It's very nice.
On November 27th, the 8th graders had a popcorn fundraiser, and these funds were raised to go towards the end of the year field trip and will help lower the overall cost for students. And a few weeks ago, RHAM held auditions for Matilda, which is this year's spring musical. Students seem excited about their roles, and everyone else is excited to see the show. On December 7th, middle school band and chorus students had the chance to audition for this year's Eastern Regional Music Festival, and this event will take place in March. In upcoming news, band students have the opportunity to go on a field trip to go to the Bushnell this Friday, December 20th. And also, the Ski and Snowboard Club had an informational and safety meeting last week. Students in this club are excited to hit the slopes. Finally, this week, RHAM Middle School Student Council is sponsoring a Winter Spirit Week, and we kicked off the week with a Cozy Day. In conclusion, there have been many events happening at the middle school this month, with many more to come. After a busy few weeks, everyone is excited for winter vacation.
What's a Cozy Day?
So we had a Spirit Week this week, and Cozy Day was today, and we could wear like sweatshirts, sweatpants, pajamas, so anything
Nice.
cozy.
Okay. Great. Oliver?
I think there's not that much else to add, but all I just want to say is in late November we had our blood drive, which was a really great experience. I love it coming up. And then only other thing I wanted to add was that there's a math team for junior varsity happened last Thursday, and that went really well. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for starting us off today. All right, so that brings us to the board chair report. I just have a couple things. In late November, they closed out the fall sports season with the Fall Sports Night Awards. If you've never been to the awards, it's really worth going. Dan Trudeau does a great job of recognizing the accomplishments as athletes, but also for academics. And it is amazing to me the number of students that are able to achieve a certain level to get the recognition for academics, as well as playing their sports at the level that they are. The celebration includes a photo montage at the end, which is what like all the kids wait for, and they're waiting to see. He mixes it all up. It's not done by sport. So, you know, you'll have a sport come up and they'll be cheering over here, and then somebody else and they'll be cheering over here. It's really wonderful. The photos are amazing, and I believe that they're done by volunteers from the sports teams, parents, and just to kind of reinforce that of how terrific it is. The Harper Current highlighted one of the photos in the best photos for 2024 series. It showed RHAM catcher Joey Tyler tagging out a Hand High School student, this in action photo, and it just, it's really, really impressive. I'll be participating in a CAVE session tomorrow on the 2025 legislative issues and advocacy. You may have also seen in the many emails that you get from CAVE, they did announce the Area 3 Legislative Breakfast, which is on January 3rd. That breakfast we're going to be hosting here at RHAM High School. So if you are able to work your schedule to be here, it would be great to have, several of the board members participate. And I think that's it for me.
And I think everybody stole pretty much everything that I was going to say. So there's a couple of things. I just, I want to say I echo Meg's sentiments about the loss of Eric, but you may have noticed that he's sitting over there still. Eric has actually wanted to stay involved and continue to facilitate and do the technology side of board meetings, which we're very much appreciative of, and still always happy to have Eric connected to the district. I also just wanted to introduce board members to Aaron Edberg, who is actually going to be pinch hitting for Eric for a couple of months while Eric and his wife welcome their newest addition to their family at some time in the relatively near future. So Aaron, we're glad to have you here. I also wanted to make sure that I pointed out that I have I placed copies of the latest edition of RAM High School's Rambler magazine. Meg, I don't know if she's still there or not, but Meg and Shelley Oswicki are the two advisors for the Rambler. They do a phenomenal job. I always wait in anticipation for the Rambler to come out. There's a lot of schools and districts that have gotten away from doing student like hard copy publications like this. A lot of things have become digitized, which I certainly understand. I just think that this is a phenomenal program and document that they put together, numerous times throughout the course of the year. So I'll make sure that I continue to get these to you as new editions come out. So again, just Meg and Shelley, we appreciate the work that you do with your students with that regards. I think there's a couple of things that were not mentioned, I think, by others. We had a really cool experience a week ago today at RAM High School when members of the Eastern Connecticut State University admissions team showed up to RAM in the morning with the ECSU mascot at the night. And they actually did something here at RAM that they've never done before, which is actually distribute the admissions packets to approximately 60 RAM students who have been accepted for admissions to ECSU for the start of next school year. It was really cool. The energy was pretty palpable in the room. Kids were excited about it. And, also got an opportunity to have their picture taken with the night. It was cool. It was a really cool experience. They're going to do it with other districts as well, but we were their first one that they did that with, so it was really neat. And then the only other thing that I'll mention that you guys may have, but I don't want to make sure it is overlooked, or I want to make sure it's not overlooked, is that our DECA students led a toy drive at the high school last week, which was really great. They gathered a ton of toys to be donated to Operation ELF, which is an organization that helps families of soldiers and airmen deployed during the holiday season. Really great community service project that they do. It's one of the many things that our faculty and staff do for members of the greater community. I want to just echo, I think, what Sam said, which is we do have our winter vacation coming up. I think that there is talk about palpable energy. I think that there is a lot of energy and excitement about our vacation coming up. It's something for us to look forward to. So I just wish all of our faculty and staff and students and board members a wonderful holiday season. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to the consent agenda.
Could I say something real quick about
Yes.
this? So I just wanted to.
I was hoping you would.
Yeah. So Heather and I have been working to try to really make a more efficient board agenda. And part of that process is including a number of different things to be approved under the consent agenda so that we don't have to make 7 motions to either to delete 7 policies that we're looking to delete or to approve minutes from meetings that we're looking to approve. So what we've done is we've lumped meeting minutes from the last couple of meetings, as well as approval of revisions or deletions of policies within the context of the consent agenda. And the way that it works is a single motion can move or approve the consent agenda. If that motion passes, all of those things, we don't have to have repeat motions. I just wanted to inform board members, the way it works though, is if there's something in here that you want to have taken out and discussed in greater detail, we could do that. We just would there would be removing, you would have to ask that something be removed from the consent agenda, and then it would be discussed individually. Does that make sense? So
what if it's a minor thing like a correction of some numbering or something
like
that? Do we have to go all the way to?
No, we don't have to do that. That's a great question. So one of the things, a minor detail, is within the I wanted to mention this to people, so I'll give you a great example, is within the transportation policy that we're looking to revise, it mentions municipality in a singular sense, and that should be, because we are a regionalized school district, it should be municipalities. So if you want to approve it as a part of the consent agenda, just understand that one of the things that I'll do before it actually gets put into the policy handbook is that I would change it from singular to plural for municipalities. So if there's something within like a meeting minutes or something like that that's misnumbered, just what I would say is make note of what that change needs to be made. Dawn can note it in the meeting minutes, okay, and then we can make sure that the change gets added.
So it doesn't have to be part of this discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
And Scott, thank you for bringing that up last month. I think it's a really good adjustment to our agenda.
So, so the only change that I had was just with that transportation policy that I've already mentioned.
Okay. So, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Gabe Marks.
Gabe, do we have a second?
I'll second. Joe Coletti.
Joe Coletti. Okay, any other discussion on the consent agenda? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, anyone abstain? Great. Okay.
All right.
Old business.
So old business, there's one agenda item that I had that we talked about putting in old business, which is just simply providing an update to the board about the Columbia partnership that we have established. As the board recalls, I entered into discussions with the superintendent from Columbia to basically develop a contract that would establish RHAM High School as a school of choice for Columbia 8th graders going into 9th grade. That contract has been the contract has been finalized. Actually, Heather just signed it earlier today. I am going to be going over to Horace Porter School tomorrow to hand deliver the contracts to the superintendent for Columbia Public Schools, and then she will have her board chair signed it, I think, later this week. And so we're all set. We're really excited about this partnership. I think it's a win for both districts. I wanted to mention a couple of things that we have going on with regards to marketing RHAM High School, because that's kind of the mode that we have to go into. We obviously want to be an option that people are interested in coming to. So we actually had scheduled an open house for last Wednesday or Thursday, whatever day we canceled afternoon and evening activities. That was, of course, the day that we had the open house scheduled, and when we had families from the Columbia planning to come over here. We worked already, though, with the high school administration, and we have rescheduled that event for January 8th. We also are working to identify a date in early January to have the Columbia 8th graders come to RHAM and spend a period of time as a school field trip. That would be all the 8th graders from the district coming over. They'd get tours of the buildings, have an opportunity to hear from students, staff at the district. And then there's also an open house that is being hosted at Horace Porter School on January 15th. And that's an opportunity for school districts to send representatives to basically kind of set up a place where if families or students have questions that they want to ask about the school, they can come and do that. So that's on January 15th. And the high school administration, myself, Mary Rose Mead, I believe Dan Trudeau, we're all going to go over there and be a part of that as well. So again, we're moving forward, and we're in a really good place with that. One of the things that we are unsure of at this time, and we're going to be unsure for a period of time, is the number of students that are actually going to choose to attend RHAM High School as opposed to any of the other school choices. It's going to make the budgeting process for anticipated revenue a little tricky. Eva and I have talked about having 10 for the current, right, that's really ended, yes. Having 10 as the place marker for anticipated revenue. Again, we're going to adjust that accordingly, and I believe that the students in 8th grade over there have to make a kind of a firm decision either towards the end of February or beginning of March. So the good news is that hopefully we'll know by the time we actually have to finalize and establish our budget what the anticipated revenue from Columbia will be. So I can certainly take any questions if people have any, but again, we're in a really good place.
We would want coordinators at the tour?
The tour of, you mean on January 8th?
Yes.
It's up to you. It's up to people. If you want to be here, it's going to be probably a 25 to 30-minute presentation. We have a PowerPoint slideshow that was developed to highlight a lot of the things that are going on and available for students in the school. That presentation is going to be followed by student-led tours to the families who are in attendance. We've identified a number of different spots and classrooms and locations in the high school that we want to make sure that we show to the students and their families. And so that's what the event's going to look like. We're anticipating it being maybe like an hour in totality. If people are able to be here, I think it is scheduled for either 6 or 6:30 on that evening, but I'll confirm that day and time and I'll send it out via email. If people want to be here, it'd be great. And that concludes that.
So that brings us to new business. First item, 12.1, is the 2025-2026 school year calendar. It's enclosure 12.1.
So yeah, so in your board packet is enclosure 12.1, which is the regional calendar for next school year. The calendar was developed collaboratively with our sending districts and is consistent with the calendar of our current school year. I could certainly take any questions if board members have it, but I would recommend that the board approve the calendar so it can be posted on our website and shared with the community.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the 2025-2026 school year calendar.
So moved.
Okay, a second.
I'll second.
So it'll be Scott and then Mike. Any discussion on the calendar? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay. That brings us to the 2025 Board of Ed meeting dates. That is enclosure 12.2 in your packet.
Sorry. So enclosure 12.2 is the draft calendar for our Board of Education meeting dates for 2025. And actually, we always schedule 1 month into January, so it's inclusive of January for 2026. Again, similarly, it follows how we've consistently done it, which is we typically shoot for the third Monday of the month for our meetings. And also included in there are things like our public budget hearing, which is mandated by our board bylaw related to the budget development and the budget adoption process. Again, I can certainly take any questions if anybody has any. But again, if there are no questions, I would recommend the board approve the calendar as presented. I should note that March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, so it was tough for me as an Irishman to schedule a board meeting on the greatest day ever, but you know, I sat.
Well, you're going to provide green beer.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the 2025 Board of Ed meeting dates?
So moved.
Gabe, second?
Second.
Amy? Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay.
So the next agenda item is the overview of the budget. I'll give Eric an opportunity to pull up the presentation online. Eva's distributing hard copies of the presentation just so people could follow along should they choose to do so. And I'll just give a minute for everybody to get that in front of them, and I'll just jump right into the presentation. Yeah, efficient. Okay. All right, so everybody has it in front of them. So I'll just remind everybody, this is, if you want to go to the next slide, Eric, this is in accordance with our board policy 3110. At the meeting prior to our January meeting, I provide a high-level overview of our budget, things that are going to have an impact on our budget. If there's questions or comments, we can certainly, I'd certainly welcome to hear those things. I'm not going to get into a high level of granular detail with this. I'm not going to share a whole lot with regards to numbers. That is not because I am intentionally not being transparent. It's because of the fact that there's a lot of work that is still going on behind the scenes. These numbers are, Eva and her team are working feverishly to get the numbers all squared away. But at this point, I do have an idea about some important budget parts of the budget and how they're going to impact it. Eric, if you want to go to the next slide, please. So I always like to just talk about the priorities in the budget planning, which is the first one is to support the implementation of the goals identified in the district's strategic plan. The areas that those goals relate to are instruction, talent management, culture and climate, and organizational systems. We are obviously working to support the academic and social and emotional learning needs of students. We are looking to maintain a program of studies with a variety of course offerings and career pathways that ensure our graduates are college and career ready upon graduation. And of course, we want to make sure that we are improving or maintaining our facilities and grounds. So I always like to provide an overview of what our enrollment projections look like. We just received our enrollment projections from NESDEC. It's an organization that we work with on an annual basis to provide our enrollment projections. The 3 sending towns send their demographic information to NESDEC, and then we send ours as well. And then they provide a comprehensive enrollment projection report. I always provide the historical context. So last year, our October 1st, 2023 enrollment was 1,148 students. And you could see how those numbers are divided over our 2 schools, our middle school and our high school. This year, our enrollment, October 1st, 2024, was 1,078. This is not surprising. We anticipated a decrease in enrollment. I believe last year at this time, I said that our decrease in enrollment was going to go on for about 3 to 4 years before we start to see an upward trend. That is absolutely something that we are continuing to see in our projections. As you can see in the far left-hand column, right next to school year where it says pre-K to 6, I think it's important to not only talk about our own enrollment projections increasing, but as you can see, they're looking at almost a 300 student increase in pre-K to grade 6 enrollment over the next 10 years. Why do I think it's important to highlight that? Because those 300 students that are increasing at the elementary level are going to continue to get older and matriculate to us. So in that same period of time, our enrollment in 7 to 12 is increasing as well by over 100 students. So we're going to continue to see growth. We will continue to see a decline over the next few years. We actually maintain steady enrollment at the middle school over the next 2 years before we start to see an upswing there. And then I think we see a decrease in the high school for the next 3 years before we actually see that trend reverse and start to increase. And again, I always think it's important for us to know that because as I've said to the board before, we need to maintain our staffing levels so that we can adequately be prepared to meet the needs of our students. This also doesn't factor in the potential for Columbia student enrollment, right? So just to remind board members, when they did a survey, when Columbia Public Schools did a survey of their K-8 students last year and families, they said it was a pretty equal split between students choosing to attend RHAM and students choosing to attend E.O. Smith. 1 or 2 students a year annually there choose to go to Bolton. They would just want that small school experience. And but they annually graduate about 40 students. So we're looking at the possibility of up to 20 students coming to RHAM as a part of these enrollment as well. So again, over the course of 4 years, that's an additional 80 students in our school. So just an important thing for us to keep in mind when we talk about enrollment. I envision, obviously, as time goes on, I'll probably add a little caveat to this chart where I talk about how Columbia enrollment has changed over time too. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, if we could go back. So I apologize. So this is the bottom left-hand corner of this slide is a new part that I wanted to make sure I added because there's always a question from our 3 sending towns of how is enrollment changing, how the budget percentage by sending towns is impacted, right? Because that number has fluctuated over the course of the past several years. Andover has realized a decrease in the amount of the member town levy that they've had to pay because the percentage of students from Andover has decreased over time. Whereas in Hebron, they have moved up in enrollment because the majority of that growth at the elementary level, which is then matriculating to the middle school, is coming from Hebron. So you can see that trend is continuing. Hebron in for the 24-25 school year, their member town levy was 50%. We're anticipating that it's going to be 51.95% for next year. Andover, they were at 13.43% for this current school year. They are continuing to decrease, not as much as they have in the past, but you can see it's dropping down to 12.99%. Marlboro, they're decreasing a little bit as well. They're going from 36.57 to 35.06. This number is, I would say, not as important to this particular Board of Education because where the money comes doesn't really impact us. I will tell you that these are numbers, these percentages are numbers that the sending towns always anxiously await. They want to know how the trend in enrollment from the towns is impacting them. So I wanted to make sure I included that in this presentation today. Now you can go to the next one, please, Eric. It'd be great. So I always like to just provide a budget timeline to where we currently are. Back at the beginning of October, shortly, really at almost the beginning of the school year, we start the budget process. Eva gets together with our FAC team, distributes the budget manual and guide at a meeting, and reviews the process needs, et cetera. We then we give them a period of time to start developing and putting their budgets together by departments. And from about the middle of November to, we spend about a 2-week period meeting Eva and myself, and are joined by the principals. We meet with all the department coordinators to review their department budgets and discuss their needs. During that same period of time, Eva and I meet with the athletic director, the director of people services, the facilities director, director of technology and communication, and obviously the director of curriculum and instruction to review their department budget and discuss needs, et cetera. It gives us an understanding about what their needs are, allows us to ask questions of them and potentially make adjustments as we are developing the budget. There's an ongoing process of updating the personnel budget. The reason that is an ongoing process is because of the fact that numbers are changing that impact the personnel budget. One of the things that I'll talk about is the insurance and how much we're budgeting for insurance. I think last year we were at 16.5% increase. That's where we were for our current school year. Where we are right now with regards to the insurance consortium is they've identified a 9% increase as the number for next school year. We had a couple of really good years. The consortium made decisions to really appropriately and in a very good business aquium to use the reserve that was available to suppress the increase, coupled with the COVID pandemic when there were just not a lot of people going to doctors. We had years where it was 0 and 2%. Obviously, we are in a different place now with 16.5 from last year. Now we're looking at 9. We're hoping that percentage increase will decrease. I believe we typically set it for budget in the February meeting. February meeting, we'll have a hard number where the consortium makes a final decision and says, this is the percentage increase that we're going through. But again, that percentage has an impact on our personnel budget. Obviously, we are still technically in negotiations with our teachers union. I will tell you that we are in a really good place with our teachers union, really, really happy with that. I would anticipate that we will reach a final tentative agreement with the union probably within the next in the next few days. And that they will vote on it hopefully sometime soon, and then I would anticipate being able to bring the tentative agreement with the teachers union to the board for the January meeting. That's what I'm hopeful for, and so obviously that's going to have an impact on the personnel budget as well. And again, of course, where we are to date is I'm meeting with you and sharing with you this high-level overview. The next slide, please, Eric. Factors influencing our operating budget for next year. We continue to be faced with inflationary costs. We're seeing increased costs for goods, materials, and services. We are anticipating increases for utilities. I don't want to give away our agenda item for tomorrow night's Facilities and Finance Subcommittee, but one of the news that we're going to share tomorrow night is we actually have an increase in our electric budget for this current school year, a fairly substantial increase, and that's going to impact us obviously moving forward as well. One of the big factors that is influencing our budget for next year is we are not going to realize a bond reduction for the high school construction. Board members may recall I think it was about a $650,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. It was over $600,000 decrease in the bond payment from the 23, 24 to 24, 25. We are pretty much staying steady with regards to our bond reduction this year. We're not going to see a significant decrease. It's a minor one that we will see from this year to next year, and again, a minor one from the following year to the year after, and actually after that year, we are going to be paid off in the high school. But that bond reduction, not being able to reduce by $600,000, is certainly going to impact that percentage increase. Unfortunately, as usual, we're anticipating a decrease in excess cost funding. Excess cost funding is grant funding that comes from the state of Connecticut that basically helps the school district pay for high-cost special education programs and services. So we're not quite sure what the decrease is going to be yet, but we are anticipating one. Special education outplacements is always something that's going to be a factor to the budgeting process. The reason for that is they are high cost. And the other factor about it is the fact that, I hate to say it, but it's a bit of a moving target, right? We can say this is what we anticipate for special education outplacement for next school year. And I can have a student move in to district in a week or 2 weeks or a month from now, and it would completely change what I'm thinking at this moment in time. Conversely, we could be anticipating a certain budget amount, and we could have a high-cost special education student move out of district, right? So that number can ebb and flow. Right now, we are seeing that we have a decrease in special education outplacements from a number of outplacements. So we're hoping that we will realize savings in the long run. But again, I hate to give a definitive answer at this point as to kind of where we're going to land.
Those two interact, right? The excess cost.
Correct.
You're right.
Yeah. The next thing that I wanted to highlight as far as the factors influencing the budget is the magnet and agri-science school funding from the state. So you all may remember that last year legislation was passed that decreased the amount that school districts would be on the hook for magnet and agri-science tuition. It went from us paying for it in full to us having to pay 58% of it. I had recommended to the board that we budget for 100% because when we went through the budget process, there was a lot of uncertainty whether or not there was going to be state funding to pay for that decrease in the percentage that we would have to pay. In the end, the state came through with funding, right? So we actually are in a good place for this current school year. Well, that legislation is still in place, and there is still a level of uncertainty whether there is going to be state funding available to actually pay that percentage of magnet and agri-science funding from the state. I have worked and collaborated with the regional district superintendents, so from Hebron, Andover, and Marlboro, and we unilaterally made the decision that for our budget purposes, we're going to put in that we have to pay 100%. I don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we are under budgeting. The dollar amount the difference in the dollar amounts is somewhere in the neighborhood of $93,000 between funding for 58% or budgeting for 100%. So if we find ourselves in a situation as we go through the budget process where there are some assurances from the state that yes, the funding is going to be there, then we can remove that and we can reduce the budget accordingly. But I think it's better to be cautious. Health insurance, I already mentioned this. It's currently budgeted for a 9% increase. Contractual increases, this board knows I have advocated for having our salaries be more competitive, and this board has responded, and it is greatly appreciated. When I see and talk with staff members, we made really positive gains with regards to making our salaries and benefits more competitive for our non-certified staff, for our nursing staff, where we've gone through the negotiation. As I said, we still not concluded with our negotiations with the teachers, but I can say that same mindset of wanting to have our salaries more competitive so that we can attract and maintain a highly qualified staff, that same attitude has gone into where we are right now with the teachers, and I'm happy about that. And then the last thing, obviously, that's going to factor that's going to influence our budget is that Columbia partnership. There's obviously, as I mentioned earlier, there's a level of uncertainty to the degree it's going to impact it, but it certainly will impact it. Next slide, please, Eric. So at this moment, I only have a few proposed staffing changes from our current school year to next school year from a budgetary standpoint. Those staffing changes that I anticipate at this point would be a reduction of 2 special education paraprofessional positions. I think it's really important to point out that these are positions that we just haven't been able to fill. There's continues to be a shortage of people who are interested in getting into the roles of being paraprofessionals. I do think that the higher rate of pay is going to make us more attractive, but I've had a lot of conversations with Christine Hartwig, our Director of Pupil Services, and ultimately where we landed with, we feel that we can safely reduce 2 special education paraprofessional positions and still adequately meet the needs of our students. That's what I've always said. I said I didn't want to take those positions out if it was going to negatively impact their needs. But again, we're feeling comfortable where we are with regards to that at this point. The next thing that I'm proposing we're going to do is the addition of safety and security officers. You'll see that I didn't put a hard number. That was very intentional. The reason for that is I would ideally like to have 3 safety and security officers across the district. I see these being district-wide positions. What I've talked to the principals about is setting up basically kind of stations or kiosks in front of the front entrances of both the middle school and the high school, and having a station set up where they're basically they're providing a lot of door access, monitoring door access. We live in a day and an age where obviously the safety and security of our students and staff is of paramount importance. Unfortunately, there was another event today in our country that demonstrates the importance of having a strong security posture. And I think 3 safety and security officers, at least for an initial request, would provide us with an opportunity to have each of those 2 desks staffed, an additional person who could spend their time circulating through and around the building, working collaboratively with the hall monitors that we have in the district. And also, if the reason that 3 is beneficial is if you have a staff absence, you at least have both of those desks covered. So that's what that's where I am right now. But again, we're looking to see how the budget shapes out before I come with a yes. I want to go with 3 versus 2. 3 is ideal though. The last thing that I did put in there as a proposed staffing change from 24 to 25 is really something that you've already authorized us to do, and I'm really happy to report that we actually do have now an athletic trainer that we've hired for the district. They're going to be starting right after the new year. As the board members know, we really kind of lost our contract with Select Physical Therapy, unfortunately. We posted a vacancy. We posted for a vacancy for a district-wide athletic trainer. We had it posted for a period of time, and I'm really happy that I was able to do a final interview and offer a position really at the end of last week, and the person accepted the position. So I think it's really good for us. I will tell you that there are a lot of school districts that are actually now doing what we are doing by hiring an athletic trainer. So I think this board having the foresight to sooner rather than at the end of this year or next year is really going to benefit us, because there weren't as many job postings when we posted it a few months ago. If you can go to the next slide for me, please, Eric. So the capital budget has yet to be finalized. We actually have a facilities finance subcommittee meeting tomorrow night at 5:30. I always provide the budget from the previous year, so that's $499,777. Was what our current adopted capital budget is for this current school year. We did have a meeting in November with the Finance and Facilities Subcommittee team to talk about some of our priorities for the capital budget for next school year. At the top of the list, it is not surprising to you, I'm sure, to see the high school track as being at the top of the list. I think I've mentioned this here in these public meetings, in these full board meetings, that we unfortunately cannot host any home track meets this year. We can still use the track to practice so that our kids can prepare to compete at the track, but we just can't host any home track meets because the track is in such disrepair. So that needs to be done. Sidewalk repairs is an ongoing part of our capital budget, and it needs to continue to be an ongoing part of our capital budget. Other items include the replacement of a Ford F-150 for the facilities department. Our current F-150 that we have is 10 years old. It's starting to deteriorate. We're starting to have to replace some of the major systems like brakes and whatnot, and just starting to rust out both the frame and the body. And so we're putting a new one in the budget for next year. Also, an equipment lift for grounds equipment. So we have a facilities garage adjacent to the right of the high school entrance. Right now, we have an outdoor maintainer who actually, we're really fortunate that he has the skills and abilities to maintain all of our own equipment, which is, again, a tremendous value for us. But basically what this lift is, it's an equipment lift so that instead of him jacking things up and crawling underneath things, it's a lift that would raise and lower some of the heavy equipment like tractors and whatnot, so that he can work on them in a easier and safer way. Last year, we worked on some window flashing replacements at the middle school. I think we had 12 windows that were done. We need to have the remaining 30, I think it's 36 windows need to have the flashing replaced. We had started off by doing it in sections. We did 12 last year. What we've realized, though, is actually it's deteriorating so rapidly that we can't continue to chunk the project out and do 12, 12, 12, 12, and 12 because it's the material that they used to in between the concrete and the flashing is just deteriorated so much that we just need to rip the Band-Aid off and get them all done next year. We also need to replace a tractor or mower. That is something that, again, it's another piece of equipment that's used 3 to 4 times a week by Mike Pompowitz for lawn care, and it has just gotten to the point where it needs to be replaced. We're looking at replacing desks and chairs at both the middle school and the high school, and finally stair treads for visually impaired students at the high school. So I think 2 years ago, we did the stair treads at the middle school, and the replacement of the stair treads is essentially creating, I think it's at the top stairs and the bottom stairs. The first two steps, bottom and top, have basically a strip that has a high degree of visibility so that a visually impaired student is aware, all right, I'm approaching the top 2 steps or I'm approaching the bottom 2 steps. It's just a safety thing. That the student who it was done for at the middle school is going to be matriculating up to the high school, and we want to make sure that we get that project done. So just again, quickly to continue with the capital, our capital unallocated balance right now is $90,404. That balance is because we've budgeted for certain capital projects, and certain projects have come in under budget, and so we have some remaining dollar from those projects that have been completed. We have a current capital non-recurring balance. That's that 2% money that we have put away over the past few years for capital projects is $341,209. And we certainly are hoping that we will have more funding to put into that capital non-recurring account. We won't know definitively until the audit is completed and presented to the board in February of 2025. But what we do know is that up to 2% of the 23-24 budget, which is projected at $625,599, can be allocated for capital expenditures. And that money has all been used historically for addressing athletic fields and areas. Again, that's money that could be budgeted, utilized for our track project.
So that's the most we could get, depending on how much we actually have.
If we have more, if we have $625,600, then we can budget that much money.
Do we know what our projection is right now? We're unofficial, non-audited.
We're projecting that we're going to have that money.
Oh, you are?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're anticipating having that money. I wouldn't want to give away what, it's not that I don't want to give it away.
Yeah.
I don't want to say in a public meeting, this is what our surplus was from last year.
Yeah.
Because people are going to lock on that.
Yeah. No, it's not, and it's not audited.
Correct. It's not finalized. So we're going to get you those numbers as soon as we can.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't counting on this number.
No,
Right, this is the 2% of the budget.
That's a best
right?
case scenario.
Yeah.
That's a best case scenario. Correct. And just to kind of continue, what we're hoping for obviously is if we have money from last year up to maybe 625,000, and then we add to that the capital non-recurring balance of 341 plus the capital unallocated, that's a fairly substantial amount of money that is going to help us address those capital needs that I just went through and identified. Primarily, it's going to help offset the significant cost of redoing the track, which again, we have to do. We're going to have a better sense of everything tomorrow after our facilities and finance subcommittee. Next one, please, Eric, if you don't mind. So just quickly go through the timeline for next steps. As I mentioned a couple of times, we're going to have that facilities and finance subcommittee to finalize the capital budget. That's going to take place tomorrow. I'll be presenting our much more detailed budget to you all on January 27th. We've identified our dates for our budget workshops. If you don't have them already, you can mark these down in your calendar. I'll make sure that I can have Jessica send calendar invites. So we're looking at January 29th and February 3rd for the budget workshops. Those are going to be when our department coordinators and our directors for different departments do the presentation of their departmental budgets. I also included an alternative or an extra date of February 12th. That's going to be an if necessary meeting. Last year, we were able to accomplish going through the budget process with the department coordinators in 2 meetings. But that's if we need to have an extra day because of a snow day, or if the board feels, hey, a 3rd meeting would be beneficial to deliberate. We certainly have that scheduled. We are going to have a regular Board of Ed meeting on the 24th of February. Obviously, our budget will continue to be discussed. I've been in touch with all 3 towns to try to identify what workshops are going to be provided to the boards of finance or boards of selectmen in our 3 sending districts. Marlboro, they've identified February 13th. Hebron has identified March 18th. And Andover, I'm still waiting to hear from them. But what Eric Anderson, the town manager, said to me is that he's anticipating early February. As noted in the board calendar that you guys adopted earlier this evening, the public budget hearing is scheduled for April 7th. And our annual budget meeting is May 5th, and the budget referendum is May 6th. That concludes my high-level presentation, and I can certainly do my best to answer questions that people might have.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The security, would that be people from a company, or would that be independent?
It's a great question. I'm hoping that they're employees, because employees are generally a lot better than when you contract through a company. I also think it's really beneficial to get people who can become ingrained as a part of the community. My ideal profile, and I'm not saying I'm going to get this, but in my ideal profile, and a lot of school districts that have these types of positions, they're attractive to people who are retired police officers, retired corrections officers. They're looking for something to earn additional income that's not going to impact their pension. And so that's kind of the ideal profile. But obviously, obviously if somebody comes to the table with a different set of qualifications, but they seem like they'd be a good candidate. But I would want those people to be employees of the district.
Are we thinking like armed or?
Armed, the cost for armed guards is exponentially higher than unarmed. So my recommendation is unarmed. We're fortunate that we have a full-time school resource officer in the building, obviously. I think a lot of the schools and districts that don't have SROs in their buildings on a full-time basis, that's generally the profile when they go with an armed versus an unarmed. But
This is in addition to the SRO.
correct. It would be, yeah, we definitely don't, we want to maintain the SRO. We're going to maintain that contract. We're going to continue to have hall monitors in both schools. At the high school, we have 2 hall monitors, and in the middle school, we have 1 hall monitor. Those positions would continue to exist. This would just be additional safety and security, and they would really, kind of, again, do a lot with screening of visitors, monitoring cameras. We do have cameras all over the buildings, and what I'm envisioning is that they'd be stationed at a desk where you'd have a bank of camera feeds feeding into computer monitors where they can kind of supervise and monitor the hallways and whatnot. And then, like I said, if we can identify 3 people to do it, there'd also be a presence of, walking the hallways, assisting with the administration in a variety of capacities at both schools. It also, having 3 people gives us the ability to use people, like adjust and shift hours, and then you could have people for athletic events. You could have people, hey, listen, we're going to adjust some of these hours. Instead of you coming in and working from 7:30 to 2:30, we're going to have you come in and work from 10:30 to 6. And that way you could be a presence at the soccer game that's happening down at the stadium after school. So I just think, again, I do want to preface this. The more people we have, the better our security posture. So this is my recommendation for getting this position into the district. I think it's really, really advantageous. But don't be surprised if I come back next year if we can get these through the budget process and say, hey, I'd love to add 1 more, because I really would. Having 2 at each school would be ideal. So I can take any more questions.
I have a question about a role.
Yeah.
In roughly the next decade, we're going to approach in grades 7 through 12, right, in the district proper, close to 1,200.
Correct.
Just wanted to talk a little bit about facility capacity relative to, if I remember correctly, I think the district was at one time over 1,400 students between grade 7 and 12.
My understanding is that the high school was up to 1,300 in grade 9 through 12. Now, this was quite some time ago, but the high school alone was up to 1,300.
Okay, so we're really not necessarily approaching capacity.
Correct.
The concern or consideration is to ensure we have some appropriate staff that was able to facilitate the curriculum offerings for that.
Correct. Correct. So with regards to staffing, I didn't mention this during my presentation, but I'll birdwalk a little bit from the question and say, my approach to looking at certified staffing positions this year is going to be the exact same as it's been over the past couple of years, which is if I find out that a certified staff member is choosing to resign or retire, I would look at every single position individually and sit down with department coordinators or whoever their direct supervisor is, along with the building administration, and say, is this a position that we need to replace? Can we get away maybe for a year or 2 without rehiring somebody? That is a practice that I'll continue to do. A great example of that is, when Mr. Nunes as the library media specialist resigned, I knew that we were going to replace that position. We need to have a full-time library media specialist within the district. So that was a no-brainer to me. But if there's somebody who's in a position where there's a conversation that's worthy of having to say, is this a position that we would need to replace? Those conversations would continue.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody online have any questions for Colin on that?
I have a quick question about the levies. At what point during the school year do we say, okay, this is how many students we have from Marlboro, from Andover, from Hebron?
We use the October 1 number for the budgeting process.
For the budgeting, and is that the actual levy for the following year?
Correct. Yep. We use the October 1st. So the October 1 number is obviously from October 1. The numbers could be slightly different now, either up or down by any grade level, town, whatever the case may be. But we continue to use the October 1st. We don't change it depending on enrollment.
Okay.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, so that will bring us to personnel report.
So personnel reports. In your board packet this evening is a memo that identifies that we have had one resignation, no surprise. Eric Nunes, Library Media Specialist for RHAM High School and Middle School, has resigned effective December 13th, 2024. Eric's been employed in the district since 2016, and as it has been noted on several occasions, he will be missed.
Okay. All right. First read of policies.
So in your packet to see, I'm just going to kind of go through each of them briefly. I'll start with 3432, which actually is a brand new policy. Board members may recall that I had shared with the board that there was a change in legislation which allows regional school districts to now use that 2% surplus for, historically, we've had to use it for capital non-recurring costs. That's how we've addressed all the field issues that we've talked extensively about. A change in legislation that went into effect for this year enables boards of education and regional districts to use that 2% if it exists for operational fund or operational costs. I shared that with you all. I was given the directive to work on developing a policy that basically is going to identify that we as a district are still going to continue to put that 2% funds, if they exist from a surplus from the previous year, towards capital non-recurrent costs. It's obviously that fund has allowed us to get things done that we would never have gotten done otherwise. They're just, if it was a part of capital, just a regular capital budget, they just wouldn't have gone through. And so I worked with attorneys from Shipman and Goodwin to develop the policy that you have in front of you that's in your packet. And basically it's pretty simple. I can certainly answer any questions about it, but it essentially says that we're going to establish a reserve fund for, it's a non-lapsing account, and money is going to be used from, that goes into that account, continue to be used for capital non-recurring costs. I did want to include, and I did bring this to the policy subcommittee, and they were in agreement that it was the right thing for us to do, to include a little caveat to that. And that is in the second sentence of number 2, which simply says, however, the Regional School District 8 Board of Ed may, by a 2/3 vote of its entire membership, use funds from the account to pay for other educational expenditures. This is a little bit of a safety net, right? If we find ourselves in a situation where funding is available or money is available and we are in a unique situation, it would just require a 2/3 majority vote for the board to be able to use that funding for operational costs and not capital. If that's something that this board, as the policy subcommittee, I think I'm capturing this correct, Drew, was in agreement that this was the right approach, was an agreement that having it be a 2/3 vote was the right number of board members to be in support of it. But obviously, if there's further discussion with the entire board, we can certainly do that. But again, the policy subcommittee was in agreement that that was good language to have in here. Thoughts, questions? Good?
No, I agree with you.
Okay, all right. I'm just going to keep moving right on. So the next policy is 6123, which is reading assignments and other instructional material. Basically, it was identified as an unnecessary policy. It's unnecessary. It's not mandated that it's a part of our policy book. And again, the recommendation to delete it was made, and I made that to the policy subcommittee, who didn't see any concerns with that either. We're just going to keep moving on because the remaining ones are just simple deletions. The next one is payment for goods and services, 3326. This is not only an unnecessary policy, but as you can see by looking at the language of it, it is outdated. It talks about the treasurer of the Board of Education signing checks along with the superintendent. I don't sign checks. The treasurer doesn't sign checks. We have a process for paying of goods and services, and this is not it. And this is not a mandatory policy, so it was recommended. I'm recommending that we repeal it. Next one is 3434, which is the annual audit. We are required by statute to conduct an annual audit of our budget from the previous year. This is an unnecessary policy. It's repetitive of legislation. We follow it anyways. We always have an audit done. So we're recommending repealing or deleting this one.
On this one, though, there was a question.
What was the question?
Right. I couldn't find it in the statute because I'm not good at reading legal stuff. But the statute does require the audit, but this policy also requires that the audit be presented at a regularly scheduled public meeting. And I didn't know whether that was in statute or not. I thought we were going to go back and check on that just to see that we're not missing something.
We do that as a matter of practice though, don't we?
We do. It's part of this policy, right?
Right.
But if we get rid of this policy, that public meeting is no longer required.
So-
Unless it's in statute, and I couldn't tell from trying to find it.
I'll dig into that, Drew. So,
Yeah.
so I think, and one of the things, if I'm remembering correctly, that talked about a policy subcommittee was, if it's not in the statute, is there a desire or is there a feeling on the board's part to have just a policy that simply says the audit will be presented to the board in February, which we could certainly do that. We could simplify this down a bit, but I could clarify.
Yeah,
that.
just to clarify that.
And I could do
It's
that
a-
and provide information to the board in an update that I send out on a weekly basis. The next policy is 3440, which is inventory. It identifies the process and the requirement to develop a system for inventorying of school district equipment with a current value in excess of $1,000. Again, this is an unnecessary policy, and Eva can correct me if I'm wrong, as a part of our auditing process, we're required to have maintain an inventory list. And so again, unnecessary because it's required as a part of the statute for audits. And the last one, I believe, I think it's the last, it is the last one. The last one is policy 3532, which relates to insurance. It just basically says that we're gonna have insurance to protect the school district against losses resulting from fire casual. I mean, we obviously have insurance, regardless if it's in policy or not. I would recommend that the board still maintain insurance. So again, it's an unnecessary policy, and we're just trying our best to thin our book down. So if there's any questions, I could do my best to answer them outside of the one that I can.
Anybody have any questions about those? Okay. Brings us to financials.
And I am more than happy to turn it over to Ms. Gout.
All right, so enclosure 12.6A, I'm projecting a net favorable position of $203,576 as of the end of November. That does take into account tuition for magnet school that has been freed up. The capital improvement fund is still working on trying to finalize the bid documents and technical specifications for the ADA project. Hopefully that'll be finalized in January so we can go out to bid accordingly. And then the capital non-recurring fund, we are still waiting for planning and zoning approval on the material containment that we budgeted for, I think, 2 years ago now. Pupil Services is still closely monitoring their expenditures and ensuring that any changes driven by the students' individual plans are captured and adjusted in existing purchase orders, canceling purchase orders, and opening new ones depending on what the case may be. Are there any questions that the board may have at this time? So hearing none, we'll go up to 12.6B, which is the food sales and service for the month of November. We actually had a gain at the end of November of $3,407.27, but we still overall have a net loss of $43,218.15 for the year. We also had our guest chef come back on November 25th, and he served ramen noodles this time. And it seemed like it was an enjoyable event for students, but my students left, so I can't ask. Are there any questions that the board may have on that?
You might need a special invite for Chef Day.
Okay.
Close these entrees out.
All right, we'll have to make sure that happens.
Imagine ramen noodle
I put on an apron and a hat. I don't know why I need the hat, but I serve up too, so I can sling some food for you guys.
We'll remember to invite the board next time.
Why was there such a big drop in the cost?
So what is happening is the food service manager that we currently have, she is doing her best to tighten up the reins and making sure that food costs and or whatever supplies she might not need are not ordered, or just to make sure that inventory is not as high as it's been.
Oh, that's good.
Every little bit helps.
Yeah.
Right, so hearing no more questions, 12.6C is the student activity report for the month of November, and we balance with the bank. Are there any questions that the board may have on that?
No, but I have to periodically note just how much fun it is to read that.
I'm glad you enjoy yourself. Moving on to 12.6D is the short-term investment fund. We reinvested dividend of $1,580.86. And in addition, if you look at the statement, you will see that I rolled over the $150,000 that we spoke. Are there any questions that the board may have on that? Thank you very much.
Okay, that brings us to, oops, does somebody have a question?
Just a comment. Thank you very much for that document too, with the explanation of the account numbers.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, that brings us to item 13, committee reports, facilities, safety, transportation.
On November 21st, we held a combined facilities and finance subcommittee meeting. I think we set a record for time. I had an appointment I had to get to, and I think we did. The Pledge of Allegiance was probably the fastest ever. Nevertheless, one of the things that we talked about that was most important, aside from approving our prior minutes, was Field Turf came in and gave us a presentation on the quote for the track. We went through some of the options, some of the details. I think that'll be discussed in detail, much more detail tomorrow, and the recommendation from the administration will be presented at that time. So we're looking forward to that. But it was an excellent presentation, well done. We didn't have any questions necessarily, but I think they too were pleased with the pace at which we went through the meeting. Yeah. But that was it for that group. I don't know, Drew, if you had anything else from the finance side you wanted to add?
Well, we did the approval of the 150,000 move, and again, talk about the capital budget. So,
thanks. Anything else on finance? Yeah. Okay. Negotiations.
We have been having really positive negotiations with the teachers union, and like Colin said earlier, almost ready to finalize.
Hoping to get a TA and, like I said, vote in January.
Great.
That'd be great.
Policy.
Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory based on all the policies we've gone over so far today.
Yep. Okay, program and communication.
We didn't meet.
Okay, and Carrie's not here for CAVE.
and the Columbia, do we have the Columbia School of Choice Committee? Should we disband that? Because we didn't meet in December.
Yeah. Yes, we did.
And so do we have to officially disband it?
I don't know what I think you as a board can just, but I can get clarification on that.
Okay.
Because we have a committee, I don't know what we have to do. But
I'll find out.
Yeah, wave the wand.
You are done.
No one's going to show up. So
we made a decision.
You are
are done.
relinquished of your duties.
All right.
Okay, and one addition to the policy stuff is that we did have a long discussion on exit interview policy stuff. We invited Pam along, who had strong feelings on it, and we have direction, and we should be getting something to the board next meeting, Colin.
Yeah, so correct. We'll discuss it at the next policy subcommittee, which I think is like, it might be that first week back after vacation. We have a policy subcommittee meeting. We can do a review of the policy that I drafted. And then there was one other policy, Scott, that I think we're just trying to wordsmith a little bit. It's the school visitors policy. Right. And then those two will be ready, hopefully, to come to the full board at the January 27th meeting.
Okay. So that brings us to informational items, calendar of events.
There's one calendar event that I think everybody's pretty excited about. It's called vacation. Beyond that, I don't know if there's much that people are really thinking about at this point, and I'm being somewhat facetious, but also somewhat serious. You know, we are, I'll just simply say we're getting into winter sports are kicking in. Got a lot of activity already going on in the building. We have our ski clubs for both the middle school and the high school that are starting up soon. I'm excited. I know Kirsten's excited. We chaperone the high school ones when we can. Yeah, I think we've got a lot of stuff going on. So.
Okay. And then the student discipline report.
You know, the numbers are on the chart. I don't say too much about it, but if there's any questions, I can try my best to answer them.
Anybody have any questions about it?
Not that I can really talk too much about student discipline, but.
Okay, so I know we had Meg online. Ethan is here. Dr. Ceruzzi, guys, please enjoy your vacation, your time off. You've got just 4 days left. Great start to the year, and we look forward to seeing you guys back in January. So, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So
A second?
Second.
Hey, Don, that was Mike Sharon and Drew Goffin seconded. Scott. Was Scott,
Yeah,
sorry.
you give it to Scott.
Whoever.
You win. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Have a great holiday, everybody.
Yes, please do.
Feels like it.
Yes.
Well, the consent agenda was a big thing.
Yeah, I think Heather, I think it takes us like 30 minutes.
Oh, that. I could feel you guys had to pledge.